Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep into Exodus specifically, chapter 13.
Oh, yeah.
It's really a fascinating chapter. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a bridge, you know?
Yeah, between that historical moment for the Israelites, the
Exactly.
traditions they carry forward.
Right, and it's just packed with symbolism and law and themes that I think resonate even today.
Absolutely. And you know what's so striking to me about Exodus 13 is how it really brings together the past, the present, and the future.
Yeah.
It's all about embedding memory into their lives,
Yeah.
but it's also like a blueprint for how they should move forward as a people.
Yeah, right off the bat, we encounter this concept of consecrating the firstborn.
Right.
All firstborn males, both human and animal, belong to God. But there's a twist. Human firstborns aren't sacrificed, they're redeemed.
Yeah, this whole idea of redemption, I think, is really fascinating.
Yeah.
It suggests that there's a recognition that while everything ultimately belongs to God, there's this process of acknowledgement, like a symbolic act, that shows how much value is placed on human life.
It reminds me of how we sometimes dedicate ourselves or our talents to a higher purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe through service or creative expression.
Yeah.
It's that same sense of, acknowledging something bigger than ourselves.
Well, that's a great connection.
Yeah.
It really highlights how these ancient concepts still have meaning for us today.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of dedication, this leads us right to the heart of Exodus 13, the Passover.
Yeah, verses 3 through 10 really delve into the how and the why of this festival. And what gets me every time is the symbolism of the unleavened bread.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about a quick meal, right? It represents that urgency of their escape from Egypt.
Yeah, it's like a snapshot,
Yeah.
a sensory snapshot of that pivotal moment.
Yeah.
A reminder that sometimes we just have to make quick decisions and act decisively when things are changing, leaving the past behind.
It's interesting, even thousands of years later, that sense of urgency of leaving things unresolved can still feel so relatable.
Absolutely. It speaks to, I think, a universal human experience of navigating change and uncertainty.
For sure.
And Exodus 13 goes even further. It urges the Israelites to not just, observe the rituals, but to really understand and explain their significance.
Yeah. Verses 11 through 16 emphasize the importance of storytelling, passing on the why behind the what.
Right.
They were to use signs, memorials, anything to keep that memory of the Exodus alive.
It's almost like they're being asked to create a culture of remembrance, where each generation understands and carries forward the lessons of the past.
Yeah.
And then within these instructions, there's this really intriguing detail about a firstling donkey.
Well, speaking of memorable details, there's this one instruction that always stands out to me.
Okay.
It's the one about breaking the neck of a firstling donkey if it's not redeemed with a lamb.
Right.
It's always felt so stark, compared to the redemption option for sons.
It does, doesn't it? And while there are lots of different interpretations, it definitely emphasizes how important the firstborn concept is.
Yeah.
Some scholars think it reflects the importance of these animals, since it was an agricultural society. Others think it emphasizes absolute dedication to God, extending even to animals.
It's one of those details that makes you pause and think about all the nuances of this ancient text.
Right.
It's a window into a different worldview.
Exactly.
One that we can learn from, even if we don't totally get it.
And as we move on in Exodus 13, we see how these themes of consecration and remembrance are really important as the Israelites leave Egypt.
Yeah. Verses 17 through 22 paint this picture of them setting off. But it's not a straight path like you might think.
No.
They're led through the wilderness the long way around.
What's so fascinating is that the text tells us exactly why they take this detour.
Okay.
God knew they weren't ready for a direct confrontation.
Yeah.
That fear could make them run back to Egypt.
It's recognizing that humans aren't perfect.
Right.
And that they need gentle guidance.
Yeah, it's like God is saying, I know you're not quite there yet. So let's take the scenic route. Build up your strength and your faith along the way.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful blend of divine power and compassion.
It really is.
And it sets the stage for the Israelites' long and difficult journey to the Promised Land.
And right in the middle of this huge story of leaving Egypt and divine guidance, we find this little detail about Moses taking Joseph's bones with him.
It might seem small.
Yeah.
But it says so much.
Right.
It's about keeping promises even across generations.
Yeah.
Joseph's request to be buried in his ancestral land shows this deep longing to belong, a connection that goes beyond death.
And it really highlights how important it is to keep promises, even ones from long ago.
Yeah.
It adds a layer of personal history and emotion to the whole story of the Exodus.
It reminds us that even in these big historical events, personal stories and individual acts of faith still matter.
Yeah, they do.
As the Israelites travel on, guided by that pillar of cloud and fire, they're carrying not just their things, but also their history, their hopes, and their promises.
Yeah, it's powerful imagery for sure.
It is.
And we'll be right back after a short break.
It's almost like carrying those bones, you know?
Yeah.
Symbolizes them carrying their whole history with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're literally and figuratively taking the past into the future.
What I find really interesting is that even though they're headed to this new land, they're still honoring this commitment from generations ago.
Yeah.
It really says something about how strong ancestral ties can be.
Yeah, it does.
And how important it is to remember where we come from.
And let's not forget that amazing image of the pillar of cloud and fire.
Oh, yeah.
This physical sign of God's presence leading them through the wilderness.
Right.
That's such a strong symbol.
Yeah, it's more than just something you can see.
Uh-huh.
It's this reminder that they're not alone on this journey.
Right.
It shows God's guidance and protection and maybe even some reassurance when they're facing the unknown.
I've always been fascinated by how that image,
Yeah.
resonates with so many different cultures and religions.
Right. This idea of a guiding light during difficult times, it's everywhere.
It really speaks to this basic human need for comfort and direction, especially when things are tough.
Yeah.
And for the Israelites, just freed from slavery and heading into this huge wilderness, that need must have been incredibly strong.
As we go deeper into Exodus 13, we keep seeing these themes of consecration, remembrance, divine guidance, and honoring commitments.
Yeah, it's a complex mix of history, law, and faith.
What stands out to you from this chapter?
For me, it's how much emphasis there is on passing on memory.
Okay.
The Israelites are told to not only remember their freedom, but to make sure future generations get it too.
Yeah.
Understand and appreciate how important the Exodus was.
It's like, it's not just knowing the facts. It's about teaching values.
Exactly.
And shaping identity through stories.
Absolutely.
That's something we still struggle with today.
Yeah.
How to pass on our values and traditions to the next generation in a way that means something.
It's a real challenge.
Not easy.
But Exodus 13 suggests that telling stories in a purposeful way is really important.
Right.
It's about making opportunities to talk and think and connect with the past.
So how do these ancient ideas connect to us now?
Yeah.
What can we learn from Exodus 13 as we go through our own lives?
I think one important lesson is recognizing and honoring the things that shape our lives.
Okay.
Taking time to think about those moments, both big and small, that have made us who we are.
Just like the Israelites with Passover, we have our own ways of remembering important events.
Right, whether it's birthdays, anniversaries, holidays.
Exactly, and these ways of remembering aren't just about being nostalgic.
No.
They give us a chance to connect with the past.
Yeah.
Reaffirm what we believe in and share those beliefs with others.
And maybe just like the Israelites, we need those physical reminders too.
Yeah.
Those signs and symbols that make us think about the stories that make us who we are.
Like a family heirloom, a photograph, even a song.
Right.
Those things can trigger memories and make us think.
It's about finding things that ground us in the present while still connecting us to our past.
Yeah, as we move forward.
Yeah.
It's worth thinking about how we keep those important memories alive. Not just for ourselves, but for future generations too.
Exactly.
How do we make sure the stories that shape us are still told and understood?
It's a big question.
It is.
But an important one to think about.
Exodus 13 shows us that our personal and shared memories can shape not only who we are, but also what we do.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating chapter, I'm left with this feeling of awe at the power of memory, the importance of faith, and how the past shapes our present. Yeah, it's like we all have our own Exodus in a way. Those big moments, the journeys we take, the things we choose to bring with us, it all makes us who we are.
That's a great way to put it. And Exodus 13 gives us this framework for understanding how those individual journeys fit into the bigger story of a community, a whole people.
Right.
It's about personal faith, sure.
Yeah.
But it's also about collective memory and a shared future.
And don't forget, the Israelites are just at the start of their journey as we leave them in chapter 13.
Right.
They have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Full of challenges and uncertainty.
They're going to need all the strength and guidance they can get.
Exactly, and that's why this chapter is so important.
Yeah.
It sets them up to be resilient.
It's like when you pack for a long trip, you need those essential things. The tools and supplies that'll keep you going.
And for the Israelites, those supplies include the memory of their liberation, the practice of their faith, and that constant presence of God symbolized by the pillar of cloud and fire.
Those are some pretty powerful tools to have.
Definitely.
It makes you think about what our own essential supplies are in a way. What do we rely on to get through the tough times and uncertainty in our own lives?
What stories, what values, what beliefs do we hold on to when things get hard?
Right.
Those are some really interesting questions to think about.
Yeah.
Exodus 13 doesn't give us all the answers.
No, it doesn't.
But it definitely helps us look at our own journeys.
Yeah.
Both individually and as part of something bigger.
It reminds us that the past isn't just something we leave behind. It's something we carry with us.
It shapes us,
Right.
Our identity, our values, our whole understanding of who we are and where we're going.
Exactly.
So as we finish up our deep dive into Exodus 13, I'm left with this feeling of awe, really, at how powerful memory is, how important faith is.
Right.
And the profound ways the past shapes our present.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It really has.
I hope everyone listening is leaving with a better understanding of this chapter.
Yeah.
But also with a renewed curiosity about their own personal journeys and the stories that make up their lives.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Exodus 13.
It was my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in.